the 7 covenants of God. Some people say there are 5, some people say there are 9. I'm a great believer in the 7. Again, numerology and the perfect number, I see it there. Some of them mush together in some theologies, and some they separate some. I just think these are good general covenants, and I think that they're revelatory in the nature of God, in the heart of God, in how he showed himself to mankind in these 7 steps. The first one, of course, we say that what is a covenant?
Unchangeable agreement.
That's right. It is binding, unchangeable. It sticks, right? It can be between people. It could be between nations. It could be between armies. It could be between God and man. There are all kinds of different covenants. We've usually encourage and involve some kind of blessing, cursing. Often it involves a meal. A meal is a covenant. It is sealed with a meal. After the covenant, they break bread, and that is the final stamp that, okay, we're doing this. The Last Supper is a part of a covenant. And having each of the feasts, having a special meal is a part of covenant. That once we've agreed, we sit down and we eat on it. It is very scriptural, very biblical. And so it's a part of our covenant. Typically, we see military, political, business, and even marriage as covenant. Okay? And I believe that they are revelatory in nature, that it's the opening of the curtain, that we see more and more of him. Last week we looked at in the garden, there was a relationship. Not really a covenant, but a relationship. But it wasn't until the relationship between man and God was broken that there had to be covenants. There had to be the agreement between us. And again, the essence of a covenant is what's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. And so God was giving of himself and taking from man of himself in the covenants, okay? We saw the first covenant was the Adamic covenant. We looked at Genesis 3 and said that it is a covenant of works. It points out sin and its consequences. Well, just think about it. What is the first relationship that a lost person has to have with God? We have to know that we're sinners. We have to know that we've sinned. That's how God reveals himself. The job of the Holy Spirit is to convict us of sin. And so the very first covenant is the very first step of returning back to God. Sin and its consequences. But we were promised that there would be redemption in the end. That even though we are going to have to do it on our own, and it's going to be of works, that in the end God will do his part. Unfortunately, most of the world has stopped there, haven't they? They've said salvation is of works. That if I do enough good, then I ought to end up in heaven. I'm not as bad as those people are, therefore I shouldn't go to hell. So I've racked up enough points in my heavenly goodness that I'm going to go to heaven. And most of them stop at the covenant of works and of being lost. And so when you think about a lost person, how much revelation of God do they really have? You see? And so this makes sense. This fits in with the plan of salvation because, unfortunately, until they get another revelation of who God is and of their lostness, they will probably die in their sin. Make sense? Okay? And so what is the seal of this? What is the sign? What is the agreed upon? It is the Sabbath day that we are made to rest. Now, it is a covenant of works. Say it. Covenant of works. But how does God mark the covenant of works? By giving us rest. A day of rest, which is the prophetic foretelling of what the future is going to be, that there will be a day when our covenant with God will not require works anymore, but come unto me all ye that labor and are heavy laden. What do you think Jesus was talking about? He's talking about the covenant of the garden and saying the whole world is laboring under the covenant of the garden. And I'm telling you, come into the promised Sabbath. This is so Old Testament. This is so Old Testament, and so Jesus' crowd would have gone, ding, 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 ding. We get it. We know what he's talking about. We Christians have grown up in the period of grace, and we don't know the covenants of the others. And so Sabbath, the very opposite of the covenant, is our eternal reward and our finish. The second covenant. The second covenant then. Let's go to Genesis 8, verse 20. Genesis 8, verse 20 says, Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took every clean animal and every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. The Lord smelled the soothing aroma, and the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man. Now, listen to that. I am never, ever going to curse earth. It's over. I did it once. Because of man. There was a whole world before the flood. A whole world. A civilization, empires, governments, people that had come from the garden, ancestors who had walked with God, and they turned their back on him. And God said, take the eraser and wipe the board clean. We're starting over. But he said, I'll never do that again. Never, ever will I do that again. I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. And I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, there will be seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night. They shall not cease. That's why sometimes in my prayers I say, thank you for the seasons, Lord, because as long as we have seasons, you're in control. It's part of a covenant. I'm praying covenant when I pray that. I'm agreeing with God that as long as we have hot and cold and seeds coming up and seeds going down, God is in control and he's taking care of us. It is a part of his covenant. I'll never destroy every living thing as long as these things are happening. I give thanks for that in my prayer. I thank him for that in my prayer. I thank him for the nasty seasons and the good seasons. Why? Because it's his presence. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you and the terror of you will be on every beast of the earth and on every bird of the sky. Just try and sneak up on a bird or a squirrel. Terrified. Terrified. Now you can break down there and domesticate them, can't you? Which still means that we can control planet Earth. He gave us charge over it. My grandpa used to have a robin that would land on his hand and eat seeds. I was real jealous of that. I thought that was pretty cool. Just a wild robin. But the fear of you and the terror of you will be on every beast of the earth and every bird of the sky. I think I've told you the story about the man. I saw this man do it with my own eyes. You can call me crazy if you want to, but he commanded all the ants to leave his house, and they did. I've tried it. They don't pay attention to me. They don't pay attention to me like they did him, but this was a man who had memorized the Bible. Yeah. He looked like a homeless person who lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and was worth a couple $1 million. But he kept giving money to the cause of Christ, and God kept having gold mines and stuff found in his name. He couldn't give it away soon enough. And one time we were eating lunch together. I like to spend time with this guy. To me, I was hoping osmosis, part of him would suck off onto me. And we were having a bologna and cheese sandwich one day in his house. And an ant walked across the table and he said, hey, you've got no business here. He said, this is my property, and I've claimed it for Christ. And he said, I'm telling you, be gone. 2 hours later, there was a string of ants going out the door. Saw it with my own eyes. Going out the door. I figured the one was a prophet, went back and told the others, we better get busy. God's on us, yeah. I can't explain that except he believes that God has given us dominion over the earth. He said, don't get too cocky though. I still wear glasses. God hadn't healed his eyes, but he commanded ants. Everything creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea with your hand they are given. Every moving thing that is alive shall be food for you. I give all to you as I gave the green plant. God gave us vegetarianism, but afterwards he gave us meat, and we became carnivores. Now, you can do whatever you want to with that, and you can believe whatever you want to. You can be biblical or not. That's all I can say, okay? If he gave it to me, I'm not going to be ungrateful. Only you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. In other words, literally that means don't eat a living animal. It should be slaughtered properly before you eat it. But back then, they would take the heart out of an animal and eat it while it was still beating. You know, well, come on, how many of you eat oysters? You know, you eat oysters and they're alive and slurm them down, and we eat some live stuff once in a while, but if you go to other countries, you find they eat a lot of stuff that still wiggles, right? Seafood and stuff like that. But anyway, not supposed to eat anything that's got the blood in it. Not supposed to have any of the life in it. This is a huge concern right now in New York City. New York City is considering banning kosher butchering and not allowing the Jews to follow their laws of kosher butchering. They're about to outlaw that. And the practicing Jews will either have to break the law or leave New York City. And if they get a Muslim mayor who hates Israel and the Jews, we may be living at a very strange time when the largest conglomeration and population of Jews outside of Israel is put under condemnation by legal means, by the law. But anyway, verse 5 says, surely I will require your lifeblood. From every beast I will require it. And from every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds a man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. As for you, be fruitful, multiply, populate the earth abundantly, and multiply in it. Then God spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, now, behold, I myself, I'm not sending an angel, not sending a spokesman, I myself to establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and every beast of the earth with you, of all that comes out of the ark, even every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, and all flesh shall never again be cut off by the water of the flood, neither shall there again be a flood to destroy the earth. God said, this is the sign of the covenant which I am making between me and you, and every living creature that is with you for all successive generations. I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come about when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow will be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and never again shall the water become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the cloud, then I will look upon it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said again to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. Now the sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Ham was the father of Canaan. The sons of Noah, these are the whole earth was populated. Noah began farming and planted a vineyard. He drank of the wine, became drunk, and uncovered himself inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, told his two brothers outside. But Ham and Japheth took a garment, laid it upon their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were turned away so that they did not see their father's nakedness. This is an incredibly important story, not because of the nakedness that's involved, but it tells us a great deal of what it was like to be on an ark for over a year. Think of the lack of privacy that you might have had on the ark. Got your brothers, their wives, all on the ark. And yet, privacy was at a premium. So that even the sons were ashamed when they saw the nakedness of their father. Now, there are 2 or 3 interpretations of what this nakedness was about. But we don't know. You can guess all you want to. The Hebrew is very vague. It just means he was exposed. He was naked. And so, in so doing, it tells us that even on the closed little ark, privacy was a real issue that they maintained. And that they were careful in what they had done. Now, 9 through 17 gives us 7 points of the covenant. 7 points of the Noah covenant, okay? I don't want to read the entire 2 chapters. It is rather lengthy, but I'll let you do that. But this is what we call the Noahide covenant. The covenant of Noah. The Noahide covenant is a covenant of morality. Morality is going to be brought back on the earth through Noah. We know that morality had been lost in the previous world, that a man did that which was right in his own eyes, and that evil had become good and good had become evil. And so we know that morality needs to be restored. So what is morality? What are we going to say is moral? What are we going to say are the rules that we need to live by? These rules are so important to the Jews that it is believed that if a Gentile will keep these 7 points, they will be saved by the Jews. You don't have to convert. You don't have to be circumcised. You don't have to follow the feasts. But if a Gentile will follow these 7 rules, you will be what is called a Noach. It's Noaich, convert. Noach, convert. The gentleman that I've spoken about in the past, Vendell Jones, who was searching for the Ark of the Covenant for his entire life and was a friend of ours, an archaeologist in Israel, believed in the Noach covenant. He believed that Jesus opened the door to the Noah covenant, but that he entered through Noah. I do not believe that. I believe that to be pagan. I believe that to be a lost belief. That is not what Scripture says. But he was so Judaized and so believing in the Jewish system that not only was he a Southern Baptist pastor, but he was a licensed Jewish rabbi and could serve a synagogue in Israel. So I think that he tried to blend the 2 religions together and lost it somewhere in between. I agree with his archaeology, but I totally disagree with his theology. But he taught this every week in a Bible study to a bunch of people down around the Atlanta, Charlotte, and southeast United States as kind of like a traveling preacher, Judaizing Christians and teaching them this. I called him out on it a couple of times, disagreed with him a couple of times. I was not going to change his mind, but at least he knew where I felt and what I believed about it. But it is a call to morality, a justice before the law. Before Moses gave the law, or was given the law, this was a call to a moral lifestyle that we call the 7 laws of Noah. All right? Let's just walk through them very, very slowly. Each one of them is in this passage from Genesis 9. Okay? The first one, is part of the Noahide law, is it established courts of law. Now, this is a big deal because in this day, if someone whacked your family, you whacked their family. And if you whacked 20 people, then that's okay. One of the things that Jews do today that I think is good and bad, I think it's a little excessive sometimes, that if a young boy were to hurt a soldier by throwing stones, let's say that you got 30 Palestinian youth, and they've all got rocks, I mean not pebbles, but they've got rocks, and they're throwing them at the soldiers, and they're doing it from all around, and the soldiers are surrounded. You're going to have some serious head wounds, and you're going to have some serious gash wounds from these rocks. The Jewish army will go and bulldoze their home. You hit me with a rock, we bulldoze your family home. Shouldn't have thrown a rock, dude. You knew what was going to happen, right? If you can't do the time, don't do the crime. So I think that there's a retaliatory revenge, but there's also a lesson in what they do. Like I say, I'm for it, and at the same time, I'm kind of against it. Because it doesn't seem to keep them from throwing rocks. It just gets them on the news to show how terrible Israel is. Look what they did. They knocked down all these homes. But that really comes from this kind of a concept that kings and governors and mayors and elders pretty much could do whatever they wanted to do. They were the law of the land. And so in Egypt, if someone offended the Pharaoh in some way, if the Pharaoh felt offended, he could have their entire line wiped out. Cousins, aunts, uncles, the entire line. Your name will be stricken from the face of the earth because of this offense of the Pharaoh. And so having courts of law that make judgment was a real change in world order. The eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, many people say, dude, that's cruel. I mean, if someone plucks out your eye, I can pluck out your eye. But you have to remember that before the eye for the eye and the tooth for a tooth, someone could take your entire line out because they offended you. You killed my ox. That ox is my life. I'm going to kill 100 people of your family or 20 people of your family. And it was perfectly acceptable because there was no court of law. There was no establishment of justice. And so for the Bible to come along and say, whoa, time out, just a minute. If he kills your cow, kill his cow. That's eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, you see. Like-minded. If they kill your son, then kill his son. Or have him become an indentured servant for the rest of his life. We've got to have judgments that are alike, not just trivial. This is why there are warring factions. I mean, think about gangs today. You kill one of my gang, what happens? Yeah, they come and kill 4 or 5 of your gang, and then 5 or 6, and then pretty soon you got a gang war. There's no establishment of justice or morality. And so here, boom, God put a nail in the ground and said, from this point forward, there will be morals, and you're going to follow it. And who's going to be the arbiter of morals? You? No. You? No. You two are mad at each other trying to kill each other. But we have an arbiter, and a court of law will be established on the earth forever. That was unknown until Noah. It was unknown. All you got to do is look at ancient Egyptian history, Sumerian history. Those were all post-flood. What about the people from the flood? They still lived by that, kill as many as you can and count them later concept. But God said, no, my people will have these morals. And so establish in a court of law. The second thing is prohibiting blasphemy. You're not going to badmouth God. Now, let's be honest. Every one of us has a trouble with cussing sometimes or other. I mean, just hit your thumb with a hammer and see what comes out. Have your husband or wife really tick you off and see what you think. What words come into your head, right? But cussing's wrong. It's wrong. It's not a cute little thing that we get away with. It's wrong. Remember, it's the one thing that the world used to mark Peter as a believer. You're one of his. You're one of his. How did Peter prove that he was not one of the disciples of Jesus? He cursed. He cursed. And they backed off and said, okay, maybe he's not one of those Jesus people. We should learn from Peter. It's not a cutesy thing. It's something and again, I'm not down on any of us because it all can happen. But it ought to happen less than it used to. And it ought to be our goal not to do it. Right? If you get mad at gay people for excusing their sin, then quit trying to excuse your cussing. Not much difference, is there? So, prohibited blasphemy. Why? Because it's immoral. The third is prohibited idolatry. He said, if we're going to start over, let's get the rules out here. I'm the only one that you can worship, and that's it. Everybody else is out of the water, out of the pool. Number 4, prohibited murder. Again, you go to places in the world today, murder is not that frowned upon. How many people will kill their own children because they brought shame upon the family? And the law turns and looks the other way. People kill people without reason. Do you understand that? They kill people without reason in our world today. And if you think third world countries are wonderful places to go live and we need to be like the primitive Amazonians, you don't know what you're talking about. Because they'll chop you with a machete just because you looked at them wrong, or you scare them. You don't have to have a reason. Murder is wrong. Now, remember, there's a difference between military and murder. Thou shalt not kill is the same word that's used here for killing. And it means for personal gain, revenge, anger. But it's not to protect or to defend. Because the same God sent the people out to wipe out entire cities. He just didn't want them to make it personal. So prohibited murder. Prohibited adultery and sexual immorality. This was in the very beginning of the new world and the new creation. Adultery is wrong, sexual immorality is wrong. Sixth law is prohibition of theft. You don't have to go too far outside of this church to find people who think it's okay to steal your TV because they ain't got one. When I was doing some counseling for the Department of Corrections, back when I was at Emmanuel, I volunteered to be one of the counselors there that would counsel people before they got out to the apartments and the halfway houses and stuff like that. And we had a series of checklists that we went through and stuff, and I remember this one guy, he was giving me all the right answers. He just gave me all the right answers. And I could just see that snow being shoveled, and that snow being shoveled at me. He had a big old shovel, and he was working me over, boy. You just knew, he was working the system. So I said, hey, would you like a candy bar or a Coke? Oh, no, sir, we're not allowed to have Cokes and candy bars from the vending machine unless we have enough points. And I don't have enough points, but thank you very much. Thought I was trying to catch him. And I said, no, I can buy you a Coke. I can buy you a candy bar. I can do that. And let's just relax and talk a little bit. And it'd be my honor to get you something. Well, yes, sir. I'd like some M&Ms and a Dr. Pepper. You got it. Got him a Dr. Pepper, got him some M&Ms. And about halfway through the M&Ms, he kind of kicked back. You could see the relaxation hitting. He was no longer on his guard playing the game. He just kind of leaned back in his chair, and I said, well, now, I think you've really learned your lesson. And I think you're really ready for the halfway house. I really do. And he said, I appreciate that. And he said, and I will do better. He said, but I got to tell you, I still don't really understand why they got so upset. My antenna went ding. I said, what do you mean? He said, they had 3 TVs and I only took 1. He said, I could have taken all of them and sold them. But I just took 1 and they were insured. I don't see what the big deal was. Guess whose name did not get signed at the bottom of the release? Because I have 3 TVs and I'd like to keep all of them. I want to keep my 3 TVs. So anyway, he really, honest to goodness, didn't see a problem with that. I got 3. He needs 1. Let's go get it. They're prohibiting of eating the limb of a living animal. Again, this was the eating animals alive. Can't do that. And pagan man did that, and pagan man still does that. So the 7 signs, the 7 laws of Noah. Jews believe if you as Gentiles will follow these 7, then you will enter into the kingdom. It's given to the entire world, isn't it? He said, I've given this as a covenant to the earth and your descendants who will follow you. And so this is where we are. But here, what do we have now? We have sin in the garden and its consequence. Now we come along and we have laws. We have rules. We have morality. If you're going to live outside the garden and multiply, here's the rules I want you to live by. And I want to remind you one little tiny thing about these 2 covenants. When the flood came, Eden disappeared. The Garden of Eden was wiped out, disappeared. That's why there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. The garden will be rebuilt by the hand of the same God who created it in the beginning. It's all about the garden. The garden's wiped out. People who try and find where Eden is today, I love them. I listen to them. But you don't think the flood changed river channels? Placement of mountains and hills. We know that the mountains rose up afterwards. The topography and the geography of the world changed 1,000,000 times over what the created world was. So skip over those YouTube channels. Go to something that counts, something that matters, okay? And I have one last bit of wisdom for you tonight. It's 26 minutes after. The world is round. It's round, okay? If you're paying attention to social media, it seems to be up to question. I am here to tell you, no. Scripture says there's a north, south, east, and west, and that there's a top and there's a bottom, and that you can get all the way around it.